Hello, my name is Steve George and it's great to have you here. In this video, I continue sharing how-to content so that users are able to complete their data copy process by importing data into the target client. The agenda will focus on these areas: an introduction to the function named import control, the sharing of important information about the conflicting data options, how to use this function to initiate data imports, and we'll conclude with some useful content and where to locate additional resources. Import control is the only function available in Data Echo that can be used to initiate data imports. Imports can be initiated using either foreground or background processing. Import control also contains several reports that may be helpful to the user. It's important to understand that exported data may already reside in the target client, so the user has an important decision to make whenever data is being imported. The conflicting data options are always presented to the user for each and every import. This is because the decision may vary from one import to the next based on things like the specific use case and into which client the data is being imported. For example, you may care less about conflicting data when importing into Sandbox, but care a lot when importing into QA. The default setting is the replace option, and this is because it tends to lead to higher data integrity in the target client. So, how does import control know whether or not to replace existing data during import? This is done by comparing the data in the export files with the data existing in the target database. This comparison is performed on each table and is limited to each table's key fields, since that is what determines the data's uniqueness. Here's the impact of what each option does. Replace conflicting data will replace data where a conflict is found. It will append data where a conflict is not found. Skip conflicting data will not replace data where a conflict is found and so is left as is. It will append data where a conflict is not found. Data is never deleted outright from the target client using either option. Only data replacements or appends will occur. There are a few simple steps that need to be performed to use import control. The function must be selected from the main Gold Client screen. The user must select the checkbox next to one or more export IDs. Then, execute the process using either the foreground or background job processing options. The larger the dataset being imported, the more it is recommended to use background processing. Let's walk through this process using the Gold Client user interface. To reach the Gold Client solution, use T-code ZGOLD, Z-G-O-L-D. From the Gold Client screen, select the Import Control function. I'm going to check the box for Export ID 1384. Now, I'm going to perform this import twice. First in foreground and then in background, just so that you can see both processes at work. I'll select the Execute in Foreground option. When prompted with the conflicting data options, I'm using the default setting. After selecting Accept, the import initiates. Once processing completes, an output appears showing the results of the import. Let's return to the Import Control screen and repeat the process using the background option. I'm going to check the box for Export ID 1384. I'll select the Scheduled Job option. When prompted with the conflicting data options, I'm choosing the Skip setting this time, and then Accept. Next, input a meaningful job name. The default option is to start the job immediately, but the date-time option allows for future scheduling when useful. Select the Accept button and then close any subsequent messaging. The import job can be monitored via T-code SM37. Now it's just a matter of waiting for the import process to complete. Once done, the dataset should exist in the target client and be available for immediate use. I'll return to the presentation to share some additional content about import control. Import control uses default values for the file creation date, which always uses today minus 30 days, and the user's ID for the user who ran export values. This is done to limit the exports, which the user would most likely select for importing. Of course, these values can be freely changed or removed altogether. Import control has 4 reporting functions. The data detail report displays the list of data objects which are stored in the export files. The sizing report shows the number of records exported from each table and the overall total. The export files can be opened from here to see their contents. The conflicting data report displays only the list of data objects stored in the export files which conflict with existing data in the target. In this example, the report shows conflicts for materials and customers, but not for deliveries or sales docs. This report can help when uncertainty exists about executing the import using the replace or skip options. The import progress report is primarily used for active imports. It provides insight to what data is in progress, what data has been imported, any errors, and a summary. Users may run an import for multiple exports. In other words, exports and imports do not need to be executed in a 1-to-1 ratio. Users are free to delete their export files. Doing so can help keep the file directory from filling up. The parallel processing option allows the user to initiate their import using multiple jobs versus just one, which is useful for accelerating the completion of the import, especially for larger data sets. Please be aware that Go Client has configuration that will dictate the maximum number of jobs that can be initiated. For additional information and how-to content, please reference the Data Echo User Guide located on the Qlik Help website. My hope is that this was a useful overview of the import control function. With practice, you should be able to initiate some data imports in no time. Having watched this video and an earlier one on DataSnap, you can ideally perform simple data copies.